Good evening, everyone, and welcome. If you did not get a chance to grab something to eat or drink, definitely grab those items. And so help yourself to any of those items. You need to go use the restrooms, definitely do that. For those of you who are not familiar with us here at St. Catherine's, there are restrooms just right here in the doors, as well as a set of restrooms through the double doors here as well. So there's two sets on either side that you can go to. There's also another set over there, but I think these two here should be okay. So, welcome all of you. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. During the break, if I forget to say this, I'll say it now. There are a couple of books. One is our minutes book that dates back to the 1900s, right where Katie is. Back to the 1900s, our corporate board minutes, and you'll hear more about the word or corporation and all that in a few moments, as well as a scrapbook that has the history of our school as well on that. So before we begin with my presentation, let's begin with a prayer and call upon God's presence for us this evening and in our thoughts as we continue to move forward in discussion. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Lord, our faithful God, we come to you today asking for your guidance, wisdom, and support as we begin this meeting. Help us to engage in meaningful discussion, allow us to grow closer as a group, and nurture the bonds of our school and faith formation community. Fill us with your grace, Lord God, as we make decisions that will affect the students, staff, faculty, alumni, and friends of our school, and continue to remind us that all that we do here today, all that we accomplish, is for the pursuit of truth for the greater glory of you and the service of humanity. We ask these things in your name through Christ our Lord. Amen. I'd like to welcome all of you here this evening, and thank you to all of you for coming to our presentation as well, that we call our presentation dialogue meeting. We appreciate you being here to learn about some of the challenges as well as opportunities that we face with St. Anne's Catholic School. And we look forward to your sharing reactions and observations to the information that we will present. We want to keep our meeting to 1 hour and 45 minutes as promised, and so to help that, Hal gave me a little guide to make sure that I keep my announcements short, so I don't ramble on, as I'm kind of rambling on right now. So our purpose is to explore our proposal to repair, improve, and expand, or build a new education facility as part of a comprehensive feasibility study. The details of this study will be shared in the early portion of our presentation this evening. Collectively, whatever we decide to do, we must work to shape the future to ensure that we can provide for the education to current members and the next generations who will join us. Once we share this information with you, we need to listen to your comments and questions. We will try to respond with the best information we have at this time. If we do not have an answer at this meeting, we will work to find the answer and share the information with all parishioners. I'm very glad that you have joined us this evening to learn about the proposal and then to share your ideas as we continue to explore and responsibility in the planning of our future. And now, as we continue, I'd like to introduce our presenters. First, we have Mark Lundberg from YHR Partners Architects in Moorhead, and he'll be presenting the architectural piece of our proposals. And then also, we are very blessed to have with us also Hal and Katie Johnson from Hal Johnson and Associates in Bloomington. Just a little side note, I think it's really cool, and they're probably tired of me saying this, that their son Ben Johnson is the Minnesota Gophers men's basketball coach. So something interesting here that we have with these two and their family as well. Hal and Katie have worked with our parish for the past several months to help us with the organization, the content and communications in preparation for these meetings. As part of the feasibility study we have hired them to conduct. They are now in their 48th year of working with faith communities to help determine ways to strengthen and shape their future. St. Anne's Catholic School is their 318th project, helping the faith communities they serve to raise over $337 million. Now let me turn this meeting on over to Hal, who will begin our presentation. So welcome, Hal.
Good evening to all of you. Thank you so much for devoting part of your day. I'm going to ask now our volunteers to pass out a packet to each of you. There are some pencils here. Raise your hand if you do not have something to write with. We want to make sure that you have that. And if you are here as a couple, we would like each of you to take one of the booklets, and you can review it independently and not feel that you're having to share it. But you can leave that extra booklet, on your way out this evening.
Okay, fine.
I know you'll be anxious to jump inside the document, but we'll wait till these are all passed out. And I want to call your attention on the inside front cover of the booklet. If you would pull out this comment sheet that's in beige color, I just want to take a moment to review that with you. You'll see here we're asking for your comments, questions, and reactions about this information in the document, and we're asking you to return it in the days ahead to one of the areas that you'll see at the top of that page. First of all, if you're ambitious, you can leave it on the table on the registration area on your way out, or you can drop it in the collection basket at a forthcoming weekend liturgy, delivered to the school office. There is a mail address there for the surface mail via post office, and there's also an email address if you'd like. There's room for your comments, not only on the front, but as you'll see on the back side, it's blank. But at the bottom of the front side of that sheet, there are 3 questions we're asking you, and this can be presented in an anonymous fashion. You do not have to sign this, but as you'll see at the very bottom, if you would like a more personal response, obviously we need to know how to reach you. So please put your contact information, and one of the planning team members will reach you. I want to thank you. If you can just call your attention up in front here, thank you for filling out the white card on your way in, because now you understand we're asking you to fill it out so that we do not mail this to you and waste resources with another copy. And then lastly, before we begin, I want to call your attention to this bright yellow card. It's not in your packet, but it will be distributed at the end of the meeting. And what we're going to do is we're going to, in essence, test your pulse. What are you thinking in response to 4 questions, or 4 statements, I should say, on your way out? So this is something we want you to fill out. Again, it's anonymous. We do not want you to sign it, and you'll know more about that once we get started with delivering the presentation. So let's take a look at the cover page. Right above the picture of St. Anne's Catholic School and their faith formation building, you'll see the title. This is a feasibility study to invite feedback on potential options to repair, improve, expand, or potentially construct a new facility. This is the second of our 4 meetings. We'll have 2 more sessions tomorrow over at St. Anne's. And then on the right-hand side, on page 1, you'll see a brief letter that's been put together by the planning team. So please take your time to read that. I'm just going to call your attention to the quote on page 1. The community is at the heart of all Catholic education, not simply as a concept to be taught, but a reality to be lived. And that's attributed to St. John Paul II. Now, if you turn to page 2, on the left-hand side, you'll see a table of contents that will allow you to come back after reviewing this 28-page document and find certain sections that may be of interest to you. Then to the right of that on page 2, you'll see the 2 major area faith community members, not only St. Anne, but also St. Catherine here, and we're delighted to be in this presentation hall this evening. Let's take a look at page 3, and I'm not going to read all of that, but I want you to have an understanding what you can expect from a feasibility study. Our company has been asked to conduct this study at a cost of $9,500. So we want to be very transparent about that particular cost, and that's for the work that we've done over the past several months and some of the work that you're now going to hear about through this presentation. If you go down the left-hand side of page 3, I'm going to touch on some of these crosses that you'll see. The second cross talks about the process we'll utilize 4 identical open invitation presentation dialogue meetings. where church and school households can learn about this information and then offer questions, reactions, hopes, dreams, and concerns. Move down a couple, and you'll see that following these 4 meetings, we're going to have assembled all of the households that attended. And from that, we're going to give Father Tony and the trustees an idea of how to select potentially 40 households, a kind of a cross-section of all those who attended, to give us a flavor of what you're thinking after these meetings. Those will be confidential interviews. We're going to conduct those at St. Anne in a private area. My wife is going to conduct some of the interviews. I'll do the same thing. And what we're going to have is a 45-minute conversation. Ask those households that are part of the cross-section maybe 20 to 25 questions. And it will expand on what you learned in this document. And those will start maybe 2.5 weeks from now. So it'll give you a chance to review this and then maybe bring your further thoughts in response to those questions. As it says later on in this same page, all of your responses will be confidential. You will never have your name appear in the report. They'll never be connected to any statement. So you have the full freedom to share your opinions about what you're going to learn tonight. Then let's go to that bottom left-hand cross. In addition, written surveys will be mailed to all remaining households who attend these meetings, but were not selected for that healthy cross-section of households we're looking for. I'm going to let you read page 3 on the right-hand side, but I'll call your attention to the last 2 crosses on page 3 on the right side. Once we pull together the information from these meetings, the interviews, the surveys, any feedback forms that you provide, we'll put that into a comprehensive report with every word listed without the names of anyone that shared that information. That report will be reviewed by the parish leaders and the leaders of the school, but then part of transparency of our business is we want any interested parishioner who wants to check out a copy of that report to be able to review it in its entirety. So what we'll probably have is maybe 6 or 8 reports numbered 1 through 8, leave them in the church office, give people an opportunity to come and take it for 3-4 days, check it out, review it, bring it back. Kind of like a library system. Does that make sense? So there's a transparency to this and a value. You'll be able to see your comments of what you share, but you're not going to see your name attached. Okay? Now let's move on to page 4. And let's talk about the governance. How are things structured? Decades ago, before Vatican II, we often voted in a community. We handed out ballots, and every household simply voted whether they knew about the issue or not. Well, the church structure has changed over many, many decades. And as you read this page of governance and organization, you're going to see that there is a corporate board that guides every church. It's comprised of 5 members. The bishop is president of the corporation in every church. The priest who is assigned to that, your pastor, is the vice president. And then there are 3 other members of the corporation. One of them is the vicar general in the Diocese of New Ulm, and the other 2 are the parish trustees in that particular church. So those 5 members make the formal legal decisions of something of this size and scope. So you'll see the statements of the pastor, where your trustees are, who those folks are. You'll also see listed here your parish council and the school advisory committee that's part of St. Anne's school operation. Now let's move on to page 5, and Katie's going to come forward and talk about the 2 education programs, the Faith Formation Program and St. Anne's School.
Thank you, Bill. So on page 5, we share information about the Faith Formation Ministry for our children and adults here. Preschool and kindergarten children receive their classes during Sunday school, while the 1st through 12th graders receive them on weekday afternoons and evenings. There are also summer learning opportunities and year-round service areas for service. You can see enrollment increased last year to this year. And on the right side of the page, you can see that opportunities are provided for adults to continue their faith journey and strengthen their own discipleship. In addition, our fraternal organizations and clubs facilitate evangelization through their ministry. Let's turn to page 6, where we begin to concentrate on St. Anne's School, whose mission is, at the top, it's to pass on our Catholic faith and an excellent education. They impart on the students that they enter to learn Christ and they exit to serve Christ. The 4 bullets show the school's vision, which is the foundation for their curricular planning and decision making. As you can read, the first school was built nearly 100 years ago and was staffed by the sisters from Good Counsel Academy. Through the years, additions, including a new gym, have been made to the school facility. Enrollment peaked at 200 in the late 1960s when high school grades were included. Enrollment did begin to decline in the 50s and 60s and 70s, but the quality of education certainly didn't. St. Anne's received its first Minnesota non-public school accrediting association award in 1987. As rural populations in the state decreased in the early 2000s, enrollment dipped to 87 students in grades K-6, but with more recent increase in population due to favorable farming, a preschool was added in 2013. Today, enrollment is the highest since the early 2000s. Over 100 years, St. Anne's has averaged 100 students. On page 7, we see photos of the school in action. Let's look at the text at the bottom left of that page. Our enrollment students represent the communities of Wabasso, Wanda, Lucan, Seaforth, Vesta, Redwood Falls, Milroy, and Walnut Grove. At present, school enrollment represents 81% of total religious education enrollment at St. Anne's Church. 7 years ago, enrollment at St. Anne's totaled 89 students. Today, enrollment is just over 100. This is a similar trend in local public schools and reflects the growing population in the area. You can see the table on the right that shows those enrollment statistics by grade over the last several years. Let's turn now to page 8. And that initial list shows the activities that foster faith in action. These support the mission that the school lives every day, that we read a few pages ago. Schools have changed over the last 100 years. As I reflect on my own Catholic elementary school education and compare it to that of my grandson as I volunteer in his first grade classroom, I sense many of those changes are necessary as schools address the 21st century learner. St. Anne's has made strides to add state-of-the-art technology so ingrained in those children's lives. In addition to core content, St. Anne's provides additional subjects and differentiated learning for each student's needs. I'm going to move now to page 9, which shows information on the school's finances. And I know I'm moving kind of fast, but you're able to read this information at your leisure when you take the book at home. The tables on the left side show the revenue that was budgeted for last year and its actual revenue at year end. And then on the right, the year-to-date budget for this year, which ends June 30th, and the actual revenue year-to-date. The lower table reflects the expenses budgeted and expended last year and this year to date. I'm going to read the last paragraph on that left column. The annual cost to educate one child at St. Anne's School ranges from $4,800 to $6,200. About 27% of this expense is subsidized by the parishes. Repairs and maintenance of old building structures continue to increase from year to year. The pie chart on the right side breaks down the sources of funds the school received last year. Starting from the top and going clockwise, the sources are listed and shown in the key in that order. The 27% provided by the parish subsidies is the last wedge of the pie. In 1988, the Father Deal Endowment Fund was established. Through generous contributions to the principal, the interest is then used to support annual school expenses. St. Anne's was fortunate enough, we can call it fortune, the last 2 years to receive federal funds because of the COVID pandemic. Many nonprofits received funds to subsidize their needs. So in the past 2 years, that interest was reinvested into the fund rather than used for school expenses. Now I'll turn it back to Hal for the next few pages.
Thanks again for following along as we move forward. So with those first 9 pages to kind of set up a level of information and knowledge, we're going to turn to what we really want to present, which is the situation in the school right now. And that begins on page 10 and continues on page 11. These last 2 pages will precede Mark's part of the presentation when you'll start to look at some of the conceptual options for how to address these deficiencies. So let's look at the top of page 10 on the left-hand side. You're 1 year away from your 100-year anniversary of the school's founding, and you're 50 years since the last significant upgrade or addition to that building. As you can see in the second paragraph on the left-hand side of page 10, St. Anne's Central School Facility was built in 1927, with the west addition made in 1953. The remainder of that paragraph talks about other improvements, and then we go down to the paragraph that talks about exterior deterioration. And this is one of 2 very urgent issues that need to be addressed in the very near term. You'll see in that paragraph, exterior deterioration, that the brick exterior needs repair. It's called a process called tuck pointing. The grout is starting to separate between the bricks, allowing water to seep into the building walls. I want to caution you, the building is structurally sound. It will not fall down, so please enroll your children there next year. There's no danger of something happening, but it's starting to leach water and it needs to be addressed in a very serious manner. So the end of that sentence, the paragraph, exterior deterioration, the estimated cost to do that exterior work is $300,000. Now the heating and cooling, the estimate of a current boiler which provides the heat for the school is typically 20 years. It was installed in 2002, so it's literally at its 20-year limit and will need replacement within a couple of years. You can see the remainder of that paragraph continues on to the top of the page, and you'll see startlingly the picture of the boiler itself, and it ranges in temperatures in the winter between 60 degrees in one room and potentially 80 degrees in another area, with no opportunity to adjust the temperature from one place to another, in other words, zone heating. So the estimated cost to replace the boiler, to remedy any airflow issues through ductwork, and remove potential asbestos is nearly $1 million. Those 2 items are the most urgent. But in addition to that is the question of accessibility. We're all used to buildings today that provide accessibility for children, for youth, for parents, for grandparents, visitors. Who among us wishes to be in a situation of needing handicap accessibility? But it's part of today's life. So you can see by the pictures the multi-level facilities, and what you're going to learn in Mark's presentation is the building has 9 different levels. And if you're familiar with that, you kind of know the up and down of how things were cobbled together over the years. So individuals, whether you are mobile, but like me, you're beginning to age or it's tough on stairs, That's an issue that the parish and the school and the churches in the area would like to consider remedying. The cost to do that work is nearly $3 million. So between exterior deterioration, the boiler and the heating cooling issues, and ductwork, as well as the accessibility, you're looking at $4.3 million just to bring those things up to codes in today's standards. So let's get on to page 11. It's at an important crossroad. The advisory council to the school said it's time to present this to the people in the area community, to let them know that if there's 4.3, and you'll see a quote here at the bottom of page 11 on the left-hand side, 4.5. Why the difference? The extra $200,000 would be contingencies, permits, the fees for the architecture, those kinds of things, beyond just basic construction and remodeling. So if you're going to spend that kind of money, the question was, how could we address that and maybe some other issues? And that's what we're going to see here. So at the very bottom left-hand side of page 11, you'll see the following pages will illustrate several proposed improvements by YHR partners in Moorhead, Minnesota. And these are cost estimates right now. They are not formal bids. Any of you who have done any type of project understand if you're going to ask for a bid, you have to be ready to do that work within a 30 or 60 or 90-day basis. You have no money to do this, so the key is these are common sense conceptual cost estimates. So the right side on page 11, why now and why me? Well, in essence, we're standing on the shoulders of the people who built this facility 100 years ago and the people who helped expand it 50 years ago. Why me? That's the question. Why this generation to take this on? And I look at it as an outsider visiting your community. It's part of our role as Catholics to consider worship, education, fellowship, and outreach. Those are the four major anchors of any church community that's healthy. And this is addressing the education side. So with that, I'm going to quiet and let Mark come up and talk about pages 12 and beyond. There's some illustrations I'll share with you. And do please hold your questions until we get to that point in our conversation shortly. Thank you very, very much.
I'm Mark from YHR Partners, and I'm going to show a short slideshow, and I know some of you are a long ways away, you might have a hard time seeing that. We have boards set up over here, so during the break, you can come up and get a closer look at what we're planning, and I'll be over there and answer questions. But I'll give a short introduction. The first option, we looked at two different options for remodeling the school and two different options for building a new school. Because the question always comes up when if you're going to spend this much to remodel it, how much does it cost to build a new school? So we looked at that.
Mark, let him know what page you're on to.
I'm on page 12, the next page. So this is 12, 13, and 14 pages. So on remodeling option one, in the areas that are shaded, that's where we're going to do significant work to the school in this plan. On top of that, in the white areas, like Al said, there's going to be all the new HVAC, new boiler, and a bunch of work and finishes and upgrades included in our cost estimates, which I'll get to later, that are included in all the rest of the school. But in this plan, you'll see the areas that are shaded there with significant work. So in option one, we looked at adding an addition on the south side of the school, kind of facing the parking lot, if you're familiar with that. And that's that green area on the lower end of the school. And that puts an elevator on the outside of the school to get accessibility to all the levels of the school on that side. So the elevator placed in this location would get everything except the two rooms on the second floor handicap accessible in the building. So it connects all the different various levels of the school at that location. Also with this addition, there would be a direct entrance kind of off the parking lot and kind of instead of kind of come around the west side as you currently do. And so on this option, you'll see there's a main hallway that kind of is between the 53 addition and the older part of the school, a big hallway that runs north south. We were extending that off down to the south where the elevator is in the entrance down there. And then on On top of that, in the red area where we're remodeling, there's some old locker rooms, kind of a half a level down there, if you're familiar with that, they're abandoned right now. That's where we're proposing to put a couple of handicap accessible restrooms, so. There's no handicap accessible restrooms in the school, there's no accessibility except for the 5 classrooms that are on the west side, that's it, for handicap accessibility. So this option also allows kind of access, a secure access into the parish offices, because the parish's offices are on the lower left-hand side there, in that blue area. With all of these 2 remodeling options, we're also addressing school security for all the doors, so we would put hardware and electronics on the doors to kind of monitor the door positions and the security. And also, we're adding some doors at the vestibule so there's a secure entrance into the school. So if a visitor comes to the school, they have to check in at the office and they get buzzed in with an electronic door opener that would open the door. So kind of like all kind of modern schools are laid out these days. That would happen in the school. Right now, there's door intercom just on the outside, but this way, visitors would be able to come into the office, and then they would let them into the school building after they come. And then the elevator comes up. There's a little addition on each upper floor. On the second floor, it would go through the multi-purpose room to get access to those 2 rooms, and then all the way up to the 3rd floor through the library, and then all the classrooms that are on the upper floor. So. About 90% of the school building gets handicap accessibility with the elevator. Just so, like I said, those 2 rooms in the middle on the north end, which are just used for storage rooms right now, they're not used for classroom purposes. Most of the school will get handicap accessibility, including the gym room. So people that are coming to gym events will be able to get to the gym. Right now, it's not allowed to go. That's option 1. Next one is
15, which page? 15, 16,
15, 16, 17 pages. This option is similar to option 1. Option 2 is a little bit cheaper because we put the elevator inside the existing building. So the elevator on this is not an addition, it's placed right here where those locker rooms, those existing locker rooms are on the basement level. And the elevator connects all levels. It's a 2-sided elevator because you have to go up a half a level at each point. And it goes up to the 2nd and 3rd floor, and it takes out a piece of the classroom on the 2nd floor and on the 3rd floor. So that's the disadvantage of it. It's eating up some of the classroom space on the upper levels. The one we're adding on, we're not displacing any classroom space. So this one would displace, make those 2 classrooms on the 2nd and 3rd floor a little bit smaller. But it's quite a bit cheaper to do it inside the existing building. So on this option, there's no elevator down this, no toilet rooms up on this lower end. Up on the north end where you see the little yellow area up there on the north, that we're taking out what's the existing girls' restroom up there and storage room, and we're going to take out part of the floor above and put a boys and girls' restroom up there, and that would be at the main level, the 1st level of the school. So there'd be handicap accessible restrooms at that 1st floor where the little kids are on that west side. And then, like I said, with both of these options, and I'll go through that later on our budget thing, there's a list of all of the condition assessment items, kind of maintenance items and finishes and materials and lots of other things we're planning to do with the school. And I think Tom had mentioned that in 1999, YHR, our firm, worked on an assessment of this school and St. Anne's Church. When the addition to St. Anne's Church was done after that, we did a condition assessment in 1999 of the school. They called us back to do a condition assessment last year, so we came back and updated our 1999 report from 23 years ago. There's very little of it was done. Most of it is still the same as it was in 1999. There have been a few things updated. There's some lighting. The gym floor was done. There's some bleachers put in. There's some roofing work, some window repair work. But most of the issues that were in the report from 1999 are still issues last year. So, and they're addressed in this budget issue if we come to do a project in the model. All right. So those are the 2 options for remodeling. So everyone asks, what does it cost, or what's it look like if we build a new school? We're spending all this money, $4 or $5 million to remodel a school. What does it cost to build a new school? What would it look like? So everyone always asks that question. So we drew an option for a new school. Luckily, there's plenty of land here on this site. On the east side, there's a big field on the east side of the existing school. So the existing school sits in that gray area on the left-hand side. That's kind of where the existing school sits. So there's enough room over there to build a new school along one level. So this area over here shows a single level, one section school, basically one classroom per grade, with 2 extra classrooms. So in case you get a double 2-class second grade or third grade or whatever, you got some flexibility to move kids around. But so on this, you'll see on the east side, there's a new school. This option, they have the gym in the middle. We have 2 options. I'll show you the other one. And then on the east and the north side, in the green, those are the classrooms. So those go from preschool all the way through 6th grade on those sides. In the middle of the red there, that's a gym with a stage, and then north of the gym is a music room. So there's a music room, and then on the left side, closest to where the playground is over there, we're putting a playground where the existing school sits. There's kind of in the gray area, those are all the boiler room and the receiving and electrical room and things like that. There's some boys and girls toilets there, and then a library, and then off of the southeast entry, there's a lobby, so that would be the main entry to the school, and a multi-purpose room there. On the far south end, in the red, is the school offices, and also the parish offices for St. Anne's. St. Anne's parish offices are in purple, so they share that office suite. Parish offices on one side, school offices on the other side, with some common, workroom and meeting rooms and stuff in the middle. This school, we make on the site, you'll see on the south side, there's a loop for dropping off buses, so the buses would be able to pull off the street and be off street to drop kids off. So the buses would pull in, drop kids off at the sidewalk, and they would enter in the south side. The main entry is right here. And then there's a lobby. So same as what we're doing in the remodeling, there would be a secure entry where the kids would be led in that school, and when the kids are getting to school, the doors will all be locked on the school. So school security would be primary here. And then the existing parking that's at St. Anne's stays there, and then that dark gray area where the existing school sits, that would be the new playground and green area, some green space on the west side. That's that option. Option 2 for the new school, well, I have renderings of the outside, so we just did some quick images of the outside, tried to make it look somewhat like the church on the front. The rest of it is pretty simple, but on the front south side, that's what these images kind of look at from the south side. There's the lobby and the entry to the school, with some table roofs to kind of make it blend in with the church. And the outside is brick, and then some metal roofing on it. And then option 2, very similar to option 1, we just came up with another option with the gym, basically the library, the multi-purpose room, and the music, all those spaces kind of flip-flopped with the gym. So this one has the gym adjacent to the play area on the west side there, so that the kids can easily get out and into the play area. I forgot to mention, there is a space on the far end here with the child care. There's a potential for a daycare or child care, which is a need in Ovasso. So on the far southeast corner of it, that is like a daycare or a child care room. And there's a small little playground there for the kids if they have their own designated playground for the little kids. So that room is on the far south. Otherwise, the plan is exactly pretty much the same as the option, the first option. And the outside looks very similar, just you see the gym on the left side on the upper image, but otherwise it's pretty much the same. So we have a gym on the left-hand side there. Okay, next page, let's go to page 22. I'll kind of walk through our budgets that we have. So on page 22, you'll see we have a budget for that option 1, and that was the one where we proposed to add an addition for entry and a new elevator on the south side. So you'll see the elevator addition is included in there. Thanks. Sorry, I dropped it. That's the matter. The elevator addition is around $800,000. There's an existing remodeling restrooms, making a secure entry. We're doing EDA work to the school signage, making a new accessible entrance to the parish office door isn't accessible. There's steps going up to it, so we're doing a little ramp up to it. Then you'll see the big items on this, like Hal mentioned, are the HVAC, the boiler, and the tuck pointing. So they're kind of the big items on here that really need to be done. So that next item is tuck pointing, 300 to 400,000 for tuck pointing in the existing school, which needs to be done. We're doing some other repairs, plaster repairs, painting in the existing school, carpeting in classrooms. We're doing some new lighting, you'll see later. Part of that, we'll do some new ceilings. In the blue areas, those are the mechanical, electrical items. So we could put it for life safety, a new fire sprinkler system would be about 115,000. And then the big item is about 1.4 to do boiler, ventilation, thermostatic controls, all those kind of things. So that's the biggest number and the biggest need in the school. There's also a need to replace some of the sanitary sewer piping, which is original from, a lot of it's original from the 20s. Needs to be replaced, it's rusting and falling apart. So, and then the green items on the list are electrical items. So it has a new fire alarm system, a modern one. The one that's there is obsolete now, with new exit signs. There needs to be a new electrical service if the new boiler is going in, because it has to serve the new boiler. And then doing some lighting and electrical outlets in the school, in the classrooms. So all of that adds up to probably about a 3.7 to 4.3 or 4.2 million dollar construction project. And like Al said, there's a bunch of other costs, contingencies, fees, soft costs, and we have inflation in there. So the whole project could be 5.2 to 6 million dollars, somewhere in there. You go to page 23, that is option 2, and virtually the same. The list is the same, except for we're not doing the elevator addition. So that's the only difference. The elevator is, you see, it's a lot less money to put the elevator within the existing building footprint. But, so that, the difference is it's quite a bit cheaper to do that. So it drops the construction costs from 3.2 to 3.7 million, and then with all the other costs, 4.5 to 5.2. And these are kind of based on current numbers from projects that we've done. And then if you go to page 24, that has the cost for a new school and parish office. Options 1 and 2, they're both about the same. They're both 31,500 square feet. Cost to build a new school is in the range of about $270 per square foot. We do a lot of school projects, so it's kind of the going rate for just and it's not a fancy school either, it's fairly simple. So a new school, straight construction cost would probably be about 8.5 million. We have some cost in there for demolition of the old schools, some site work allowance. So probably construction cost would be 9 million, 9.1 million. Then if you add all the other costs, kind of soft costs and furniture and all the contingencies, probably in the neighborhood of over $12 million to build a new school on that site. So it gets up there. But people always ask the question, what does it cost to build a new school? So you have to take a look at that. Then on the bottom of page 24, Hal asked us to kind of look at the strengths and weaknesses of each option. So we kind of did an evaluation of the strengths and the weaknesses of each option. So option 1, the strengths are, provides handicap accessibility to most of the school via an elevator. There's handicap access to the parish offices, which doesn't exist now. There's new handicap accessible restrooms. There's a new HVAC and boiler system installed, replacing the old and aging system that's there. On this option, there's a new entrance on the south side, accessible right to the parking lot. And then there's upgrades of finishes, lighting, electrical. The other strengths is it maintains the historic building. There's people that are sentimental and want to preserve the historic and old building, so it stays. And we address most of the condition assessment issues that were from 1999 and from 2021, so with this project. And there's life safety issues to protect the kids with fire sprinkler system and fire alarm. The weaknesses are, you'll see first one, many of the improvements are not visible. You put new boiler and boiler piping and sewer piping, no one sees any of that. The building would, after you did spend a new 1.4 million, it would still kind of look the same, because it's all invisible to people, but it's needed. There's some of the old issues and configurations will remain in the school. You know, the building still will have 9 different levels with stairs all over in it. We're not gonna change that, although the elevator would make it all accessible to handicap people. The building's not really arranged for current kind of 21st century education methods like a new school would be. It's still kind of a early 20th century arrangement of a school, which doesn't really address current education methods. And it doesn't really anticipate any kind of future needs or future growth. Option 2, the strengths and weaknesses are virtually the same. There's not much difference. The only difference is it's one of the strengths is the least expensive option. And then some of the weaknesses, I guess, like where the elevator is placed inside the existing building, it's going to displace some of the space for classroom space and things like that when we had to put the elevator within the envelope of the existing building. And then to the new education center, obviously the strengths are it takes care of all the issues with HVAC and life safety and all those kind of things that we would be doing in remodeling the 2 options 1 and 2. And it's also new construction, so it's all on one level. It's more flexible and usable for educational purposes. It's kind of laid out for 21st century schools and how they would be laid out. And it would all have all new technology. It'd be energy efficient. The gym in the new option would be a regulation sized gym. The gym that's in St. Anne's right now is very small, smaller than even a standard elementary sized gym. The gym on the new plan would be sized for a middle school, high school sized gym. So it'd be an 84-foot basketball court. So you could host tournaments and have regulation basketball games. And then this one also has a kind of childcare multi-generational space on the new option with its own entry and its own playground. Obviously the weaknesses of that option, it's the highest cost option. And you also lose the historical building that's been there, and some people have some sentimentality and attachment to that. So that is my presentation. I'll hand it back over to Hal.
Thanks, Mark. Well, we're closing in on the last couple of pages here, but these are important. And my first thought, as you take a look at these numbers, is the word sticker shock. It's pretty clear that these are very ambitious options, regardless of what you folks help us choose. But let's put some calm into this and some confidence that this is not on some type of a fast track or being railroaded through. Page 25 has a wheel, a process wheel, and in all 48 years of our work with the 318 projects, this helps define and puts a calm to the process. And it starts with the first step where it says in this wheel up near noon to say 2 o'clock, if you were looking at it as a clock, you did your research to develop the information. And then you prepared the document for the presentations. And now we're in the second night of 4 meetings to invite support and feedback. At the conclusion of these 4 meetings, as I said earlier in the feasibility study explanation, we'll move to that 40 interviews with a cross-section of households. Then we'll move to the survey for those that attend, but were not selected for the cross-section of interviews. We'll boil all this together, and then Katie and I will sit down and put our observations and recommendations together based on what you tell us. Okay, so we're mirroring back what we heard, and you will tell us basically the direction that this should move. At the very bottom of the chart, you'll see that little star. It's at 6 o'clock. That's the end of the feasibility study. That's where our work would end for the fees that we have charged. If you have confidence to move ahead and try to raise the funds through a capital campaign, you'd move into step 4. That's where it says determine affordability through a fundraising campaign. At the conclusion of that campaign, if you decide to move in that direction, there's another star right around 8 o'clock or so. That allows you to say, what did we raise and how much of this work can we do? And you move to step 5 and you take these contractor conceptual cost estimates that Mark just shared and you would move them into bids, because that's when the actual work would be done. So there could be a big difference between these cost estimates right now and what the market would say it will cost to do this work in, say, a year or a year and a half, when you could theoretically get started. Once you solicit those bids and understand a cash flow, what's called a cash flow pro forma, what is it going to cost? What kinds of dollars do we have raised for this? How do we pay our construction bills? You'll take that to the chancery in the Diocese of New Ulm. Why? Because they're part of your corporate partners, and they will need to approve the finances of this. And then, very important, and I want you to be aware of this, the diocese is going to ask that 75% of the cost to do any of this has to be banked in cash. It's a very high standard. But why? Because it will prevent you from taking something on that you can't afford. All right, does that make sense? So it's a cautious, conservative approach, but 75% of what has to be the cost of whatever you're trying to do needs to be banked first. So they're going to ask that in step 5. And then after you've pulled your cash flow pro forma, you've done your bids, you've taken this to the diocese, then they're going to give you permission to proceed, and that's when you start the work in step 6. So I hope you'll leave tonight feeling this is not racing forward. You're a long way from completing any of this. We're only in the early portion of step 3. Now on the right-hand side on page 25, I'm going to let you read that at your own pace, because we really touched on this earlier when I explained the feasibility study. But if you have questions about what happens after the meetings, please raise those during our discussion. Let's jump to page 26. We put together a half a dozen questions and what we hope are thoughtful responses. And this may answer some of the questions that you might have as you came here this evening or as you've been sitting through the presentation. But we're going to let you read that at your own pace, and certainly we're going to now ask you, if you would you please stand? We'll start this break we're going to have for maybe 4 or 5 minutes. During that break, we're going to want you to fill up on any refreshments. As Father said, use the refreshments, or use the restrooms if you need. But before we take a break, please stand and let's read this prayer for wisdom and guidance together. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. Please join me. Loving God, we, the people of St. Anne's Catholic Church and School, are grateful for all the blessings you have given our parish family. We are thankful to all who have gone before us, who have supported our ministries, built our facilities, and created the faith community we now benefit from. We know that we are stewards of this legacy, and we ask for your wisdom and guidance as we shape the future of our parish. We join together to live out our mission centered in Jesus Christ. And we pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. Let me just offer a brief comment before you take that break. This is a prayer that obviously goes far beyond St. Anne's. You're an area of faith community. We're here at St. Catherine's. We're providing this for your information, so please know that this is not simply limited as a prayer to St. Anne's, but it's to all of your area of faith community. So please take maybe 4 or 5 minutes, help yourself to refreshments. You know where the restrooms are, but do stay with us for the comments which are most important. Thank you. On your left, my wife is posting the comments and questions that you have. We'll add those to the ones we had in our first meeting on Sunday afternoon at St. Anne's. So who would like to offer the first question or comment? And what we'll do is, Father is going to bring around the microphone. If you would raise your hand, and then we will make sure that people have it. Mark will do the same thing. Father, we have a young lady back here that would like. There we go. Thank you. question is there anything else, any other technology that an institution can put in addition to a boiler, or instead, I think, you said. Mark?
Yeah, you can. You can put up like rooftop kind of air handling units. Tough to do in an old school where all that infrastructure is already there, the pipes are there, so it was kind of laid out for a boiler. In a new school, you can do anything. There's lots of options. You can do geothermal, you can do lots of things. Probably the most efficient in the existing school would be to replace the boiler.
Is the other stuff cost about the same as the boiler?
It depends on the system. I think if you did like a rooftop kind of package, air handling units that are like furnaces on the roof, that would probably be the cheapest one to do. Yeah.
Mark, can you just briefly explain what geothermal is?
Geothermal is when you use the heat, you drill wells, so you probably heard of those. Some people have them in their houses and you use the heat from the ground to heat and cool the building. So you don't need a boiler. It kind of replaces a boiler, a chiller, that creates cold water for cooling. So, and it uses the heat, the ground for storage.
Would it help to have numbers of a comparison of what it might be versus a boiler? Would that help answer your question, if we posted that as a question? Okay, you were just curious. Gentleman here has a comment. Then raise your hand and Mark will come around as well. Go ahead.
The one thing that I would like to know is, if you keep the existing building, what is the lifetime expected on that versus what do you expect for lifetime on a brand new building?
So the question is the comparison of the existing structure and brought it up to code, if you will. What would be the expected life expectancy of that building versus the expectancy of a brand new? Mark?
I say once you upgrade the building with what we have planned, it would last another 75 to 100 years. I would say it would last as long as it's existed. It's structurally sound. There's nothing wrong structurally with the building. It's got brick walls, concrete floors. It's going to last. There's nothing that's going to go wrong with that. A new building would be built to that kind of a standard, probably 75 to 100 year building. So, does that answer your question? Okay.
The only thing, and I don't want to editorialize or steer you in any thinking, you'll have a nearly 100-year-old building that will be brought up to standards, but it won't change those 9 different levels or how the building is laid out. But absolutely, it can last. There's no question.
Yes.
Right?
What kind of roof is this new building that I have?
What kind of a roof is the new building?
Will it be?
I'm sorry?
Most of it was going to be a slope roof. We were planning like a metal roof on there. Yeah. The existing school has a flat rubber or membrane roof.
Other comments or questions you might have? Gentleman back there, Father. Thank you.
Kind of building on the first question, I think there's a question about ongoing energy costs, about like a comparison between those. I think that would be helpful information. Not really a question.
So if I'm understanding, you're asking what would be the cost from an ongoing sense of utilities, maintenance, those kinds of things, cleaning, an old building versus the old current building versus new? Okay, okay. So get the operating costs estimated for both. That's very important. Katie's posting that. Thank you. Other comments or questions you have? Gentleman again. Let's take this gentleman in first. Father, this gentleman right here, Mark, and then we'll cover your call. Thank you for your patience.
I'd be curious to know what we talk about the existing building not being able to address functional challenges of the way we teach and learn today. What are those challenges?
Okay, so the question is, if I remember correctly, you're talking on page 24, the strengths and weaknesses, correct?
Yeah, actually, on page 11.
On page 11, let's go back to that. We want to make sure we're referring to exactly where you're at. And we talk about the issue of not being able to provide the same standards. I'm gonna ask Mary as school principal, maybe you wanna come up or just actually use the microphone and respond to his question.
So right now, the current school is just classrooms that were built with, chalkboard in front of the classroom. The space itself is small, so it's just under the assumption that students sit in desks, they all face the front, and then you have rows of desks, and the teacher's desk is here, and that's about all the room that there is. They're brick walls, so the idea that, we spread out more, we work more in groups, we collaborate more with other grades, just to have that larger space area really to function. Wiring for technology is really a problem, obviously. Those things could be done differently in the building, so really it's just how the space is used.
So how much larger would the new classroom be compared to the existing classroom?
The question the gentleman said was how much larger would the classrooms be?
I think the existing classrooms are probably around 650, 630 square feet. The new classrooms are about 850, so they're a couple hundred square feet bigger. The other thing about a one-story, most elementary schools, vast majority of them are built on one level. And it kind of gives flexibility for moving classes and classrooms around and levels. The littlest kids by code, like first, second, and below, have to be on first floor, have to be where you can get out of the building. They can't ever be placed, you can't ever put first graders up on the third floor. So it kind of limits their flexibility for moving things around. Also, the new school has kind of alternative education spaces. We have some small group rooms, we call it, so they can do individualized learning, and we have a multi-purpose room in there. It's kind of centrally located that all the classes can access and use for different activities, which is different than what you have. A few extra comments.
Other comments or questions?
I'd be curious to see if there's been any conversation about non-school but other parish uses for the building. So right now, religious ed is in the school building as well. I think having some information about that would be helpful as well.
So non-school, more community or parish events or activities in there, what could be in that building? Okay. We'll post that comment and we'll provide an answer and some ideas. All of these are going to be recorded and we're going to then provide responses to these once we have all the feedback pulled together.
So I'll say one of the advantages of a new school is when we lay those out, we usually lay the lobby and the gym and the restrooms so they can be separated out from the rest of the academic areas and offices. So it can be used for community and nighttime activities and not disrupt the classroom areas. The existing school, less tougher.
Other comments or questions? Anyone who hasn't had an opportunity? Tom, please.
Just one question that came up the last meeting is, it's a new school and there's no kitchen. Did you want to just address that?
I guess
Somebody
brought that up last meeting about no kitchen. So the current plan was the kitchen and the dining for the kids would still remain in the church fellowship hall, parish hall in the kitchen. Since there's a commercial kitchen down in the basement, that's where the kids currently have lunch, and it would stay that way. Mostly for a budgetary thing. I think it's like somebody asked, what does a new kitchen like this one over here cost? Probably $500,000 to build a kitchen like that. So if we put a commercial kitchen in the school, you'd have much more money to the budget.
Let me use this opportunity to remind you about the comment sheet. If anything comes to mind or you feel strongly that something is missing that you'd like to see or something disturbs you that you don't want involved in any of this, please write that down. Not necessarily tonight, take it home, but use that comment sheet in addition to what you're sharing tonight. Other comments or questions? Gentleman Ringer.
So if you have an elevator, you have to have that checked yearly, correct?
Correct. You'd have to have a maintenance
That's the
contract.
cost that should be shown
required by the state to have it inspected annually and have a contract to inspect
I
it.
heard that other state, that you have a state in the electric bill because of the new
Yeah.
versus what we have.
There would be, with the new lighting, there'd be LED lighting that is a lot less expensive to run.
But I would want to wrap your question into what are those utility and operating costs? Not just, you know, the heat, light, et cetera, but any leases or operating fees you have to do for maintenance. So that's an important point. Thank you. Other comments or questions? Are you comfortable where we're concluding? We're not trying to rush through this in any way. Show of hands that you're ready to conclude for tonight. Just raise your hand. Okay. Well, thank you very, very much. Anyone want to offer anything final that they didn't have the opportunity? Sorry to keep wanting to make sure the caboose arrives with the rest of the train, right? Okay, what we'd like to do now is to pass out that yellow card that I talked about. If you're here as a couple, we would like each of you to be able to fill this out. This is to test your reactions as you're leaving this evening, and I'll walk through this once everyone has a copy. So thanks for your cooperation. So each of you please fill this out and just leave it at the table or at the registration on your way out. If you happen to have joined us for the Sunday meeting at St. Anne's and you've already filled one out, obviously we already have your reactions and opinion. So let's take a look at this right now. St. Anne's Catholic School Presentation Dialogue Meeting Pulse Poll. This is not a formal vote. You're advising parish leadership of your opinion about the education facility. So let's take a look at the first statement. Based on my initial impression following this meeting, I believe that we should move forward and take action to remedy the deficiencies in our education facility. Do you strongly agree with that statement, strongly disagree, or do you have an opinion in between? If you would circle one of your choices under the first statement. Then let's go to the second statement. I believe the following option will best remedy the education facility deficiencies and provide the best long-term value for the potential dollars expended. And we're asking you to consider from 4 choices. Start with correcting the immediate needs, and again, that's the boiler situation, the tuck pointing, and the accessibility. Or you can choose remodel option 1, or remodel option 2, or you can choose the new education center. Please check one box and let us know your opinion as you're leaving here this evening. Then number 3, based on feedback, parish leaders should assess all responses, determine the preferred option, and then proceed with planning for a capital campaign. Leaving here this evening, you strongly agree with that statement, strongly disagree, do you have an opinion in between? If you'd circle one of the 5 choices under number 3. And then lastly, number 4, based on my feelings right now, I would be willing to offer my financial support to fund the collected preferred option if a capital campaign were conducted. Again, as you leave here tonight, do you strongly agree with that statement, strongly disagree, do you have an opinion in between? If you would circle one of the 5 choices under number 4. There's also room for you to place a comment if you wish, but again, please do not sign this. Leave it upside down, either at your place, or put it up on the registration area at the table. Was this helpful tonight? Thank you for being here. How many of you received a phone call inviting you to the meetings? Raise your hand. How many of you were part of the calling group that called folks? Thank you, thank you, thank you. So again, if you would leave the extra booklet either at your place setting, if you're here a couple, take the comment sheet home, but do leave the yellow sheet here, the yellow card, and we thank you. You'll see there are 2 more sessions tomorrow. one o'clock at St. Anne's, the other at 6:30. If you know of anyone that you feel should join us and would want to offer their feedback, please have them come to one of those two sessions. Father's going to conclude our evening meeting now with a prayer and a blessing. Thanks so much for your cooperation, everyone. And could I ask for a round of applause for the folks who helped put together the beautiful food and all the arrangements here. They've worked very, very hard on this. Thanks, all.
And on that note, let's also put a round of applause to Mark and Katie and Hal for their presentation as well, and taking the time coming out here as well. Thank you. And again, thanks to all who helped put tonight together and getting everything out there. For those of us here at St. Catherine's, if you have questions, ongoing questions, feel free to ask myself or Chris Dietrich, our business manager for our area. So definitely bring those questions to her or Mary Franta, at our principal of our school down in St. Anne's. So we definitely want to make sure that if anybody has questions or concerns, that we definitely want to address them as well. So with that, without further ado, let us close with a prayer in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. O good teacher, we have gathered together in your name, seeking guidance, wisdom, and support as we reflect on our past 100-year history and accomplishments, and look ahead to working together to promote a brighter future for our school and faith formation program. Lord, grant us courage, boldness, and discernment as we continue to engage in meaningful discussion in an effort to grow closer as an area of faith community. Guide our minds and hearts through these next few weeks and months, so that we may work for the good of our students and our community. Fill us with the grace of the Spirit and continue to remind us that all that we do and accomplish is for the pursuit of truth and for the greater glory of you and for the service of humanity. Help us to grow in peace and understanding with one another. Lord, we thank you for the blessings that you have bestowed upon St. Anne's School, our parishes, our area of faith community. Help us to realize how thankful we are to have such a wonderful institution that we call the church, and that God's presence, your presence, accompanies us each and every day of the year. In closing, bless our students, families, friends, teachers, staff, and administration with the gifts of kindness, patience, love, and respect. Give us the grace to share these gifts. Empower us to enjoy the beginning of the summer now, whether at work or on vacation, before welcoming the students back this fall. Lord, we bring before you these prayers and the prayers that we hold silently in our hearts. Help us so that we always enter our school to learn Christ and exit our doors and our parishes to serve Christ. We ask all this in your name, through Christ our Lord. Amen. The Son and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Have yourself a wonderful evening, and thank you all for coming.
You're welcome. Thank you.